gentlemen, thank you for allowing me into your homes, whether you are looking at us on NTN channel 69, whether you are on social media, the PPP's Facebook page, my Facebook page, whether you're looking at us on a live stream. Welcome, welcome. While we are here and just in, we'd like to spread the word of what we're doing and of tonight's program. So if you could help me to share as much as you can the link, so that we would be able to reach as many people as possible. We would be able to get out to all our supporters and to the public in general all of the matters that will be discussed. Would be grateful if you take a moment and you just share that link for me. So I'll be sharing it myself on my Facebook page too, so that you can see it all from there. Thank you everyone for the responses that we've gotten so far. Thank you everyone for your contributions that you've made in the comments. We are going to do our very best to try to address some of the issues raised in the comments. But tonight, we want to start off with something that we have to be very careful about. Now, we have that keyboard puppet, or some say keyboard puppy, because he's all no back even, in the United States, who has not returned to this country for more than a decade, and sits there and pontificates and lies. He lies about what's going on in our country. He lies about the activities of our government. And it's something that we have to be very aware of and very careful about. Now, I am not in the habit of commenting on persons or taking persons seriously who have no integrity at all and who says nothing of substance. But what happened this week that troubles me greatly is this. We have a gentleman in New York, we shall call him, I can't remember his exact name, we refer to him as the keyboard puppet, Mr. Burke. So we have this gentleman who holds what he says is a diaspora event. At that event, he portrays a country that does not exist. He portrays events that are patently false. He refers to situations that are lies. He has not been here for more than a decade or longer. He, as I understand it, we all saw the Vice President's press conference today. He has not returned to Guyana because of whatever situations happened in his past. He might have been part of the Desmond Hoyt administration or part of a political administration at that time. There were questions and queries about matters, and he's left, never returned. There are people in Guyana who have been, because of the things he's been saying and doing, are trying to sue him. They can't find his address. He will never come to this country. And there are people who allege that monies are owed. There are extortion schemes that involve the Guyana Police Force is involved with, trying to extort a businessman, to blackmail a businessman, to not publish a very disparaging story about that businessman, which is false. We've all seen that. But this same man holds what he says is a diaspora event. He has not been here, so he can't know what goes on in this country. He has not been to see the Prime Minister, the President, and ministers of government go to communities like Linden and try to go into those communities to bring housing, to bring additional jobs, part-time jobs, so that persons could be employed, persons could look. He has not been there to see any of that. He has not done any of that. He has not been on the East Coast to see the communities that are being improved, the jobs that are being provided by the government, the part-time jobs, and those apply across the board. Whatever race you are, as long as you are there, then these programs apply. He's not been here to see that. He's not been here in Essequibo, where there are part-time jobs for people to make ends meet and people who are in difficult circumstances, but it gets them on the path. He's not been here to see any of that. He's not been here to see Ministers Crowell and Susan Rodriguez all across this country, crisscrossing the country from Lethem to Berbice to the East Coast to Essequibo to Linden, distributing house lots to individuals. He's not been here to see the house lots, the houses. The government took a different position of building houses. He's not been here to see that. But yet he sits in the United States and says this is a racist government. He has no basis for that. It is in his imagination. He is practiced at twisting simple facts. We saw that. He was utterly irrelevant before the last election. In those 5 months, he claimed, after the no confidence motion, he claimed to be a lawyer, but I have checked and I could find no law school that he's attended. He's claimed to be an expert. He claims to have some Sigidi, I can't remember what it stands for, organization. His Sigidi organization that he claims, no one can locate where it is, its office, its employees. He's running a shell operation, promoting himself, and as the vice president says, he's doing it for a specific purpose. But what he's doing is so dangerous to this nation. He claims that there is racism where there is none. He claims that things are occurring. He claims events on his Facebook page. He says things with absolutely no regard for the truth. He is really a man who overestimates his intellect and underestimates his ability to be utterly ridiculous. But this is what he is doing. Unfortunately, this happens because there is fertile ground. There are people who just don't want to see Guyana move forward, who, because it is not the government that they don't like, or they don't like the personalities, they want all things to stop. It must involve them. How could that be? The democratic process is what it is. But this is a man who sits there and he fools people with lies. He gets a New York State official to make a comment that she wants an investigation based on what he said. Well, we saw what the response, one response we saw today was from a gentleman who came out and said very openly that he cannot believe that a government official will say the kind of things that they are saying. The gentleman is a New York Attorney General candidate by the name of Michael Henry. He said the PNC attempted to steal an election in 2020. That is not disputed. and refused to concede defeat for 5 months. The United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union, Canada, and others across the world. We all know CARICOM and Prime Minister Mia Mottley, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, all of these people intervened after the attempted fraud. The Guyana elections were certified by the Guyana Elections Commission and every other Caribbean nation after Burke's party tried for 5 months to delay that certification and execute a failed coup. Now, this is the person. This is an accurate description of what he did. He was on his Facebook page, he was on all forms of media, on radio programs, saying things, just making it up as he goes along. He doesn't live in the real world. He cannot exist in the real world. And whatever he says, you cannot accept or believe. But he got a community, a diaspora event, a Guyana diaspora event, to believe these terrible lies. And because of the lies, people have said, well, look, we have to do something. This is not right. But he also said about the Attorney General, the same gentleman, Mr. Michael Henry, it is disgraceful that Letitia James would embrace a wanted criminal who calls for racial violence against ethnic minorities here in New York. Violence against political opponents has no place here, period. Now, we have got to face this because the actions, right now everybody looks at it. It is insignificant. He is insignificant. He has no organization. The SIGID, whatever SIGID, whatever is the organization, it's of no use. It is of no influence. He keeps spouting things simply to get attention, and people are laughing at him. People are saying this is useless. He then attacks political officials across the country. But you see, this is dangerous, and I believe it is dangerous because it is a creeping issue. To start this preaching of racism where there is none in a country with a history, we have to be careful about these things. But he keeps this message. He has not been here. He tells people who have never come here. He tells other public officials who know nothing of Guyana except his poisoned version. He and all of those persons should come here before they pontificate. They should come here to see whether the house lot distribution that is being made, whether that has anything to do with race. When the cash grants are given out, whether that has anything to do with race. Whether the COVID grants that were given out, whether that has anything to do with race. Whether the Because We Care, the school grants which were given out at all the schools, whether that has anything. No sane person in their right mind would say that it had anything to do with race. The clamoring is because of a misconception. And I would say it with the greatest respect. Guyana is now enjoying prosperity unlike anything it had before. You drive on the streets and you see there are more cars, you see new roads, new houses, new buildings. It is moving at a pace. That is true. But you see, we have to adopt. We can't take the approach that Guyana is rich. We're not. We're a poor country that is now finding its way, that now has the potential to do good things, that now has the capacity to provide for our nationals in a way that we couldn't before. But we're not, to say we're rich is what people, it drives the wrong message and brings about incorrect expectations. We're not. We have great potential. We are exploiting that potential in a much more, I should say, in a way that we have never before. We are seeing progress, we are seeing real progress, real improvements. And Guyana is now on an upward trajectory. We look at all the financial forecast agencies, the IDB, the World Bank, the IMF, they all predict that Guyana, of the 190 odd countries on this planet, is going to grow the fastest next year. It is scheduled to grow the fastest this year too. Now this is unprecedented for Guyana to be so advanced, to move forward in what we're doing, and to be number one on a list like that. We have in the past been number one on the list the other way. We have been the poorest nation in the hemisphere in the 1980s. So we're a poor country, but we're trying to navigate our way out of it. We have, as is clear, we have petroleum revenues now. These petroleum revenues we can use, and as the president has said, these petroleum revenues are not the be-all and end-all. This is the device, the conduit by which we will fuel the tourism sector, we will get to renewable energies, how we will improve our infrastructure. This will be the catalyst for us to get much more out of our country. But we're not rich. But you see what is being fed constantly by the likes of Burke and by the opposition, and what they say is to create the wrong idea in people's minds. We have to be responsible moving forward, and we are being so. But growth is good, and we should get a better, the country should improve, and that's happening. It's happening rapidly in the past 2 years. So when you look around at a lot of what is being done, to be honest, a lot of it is very basic things. It's getting house lots and homes to our citizens. Very elementary things. Getting a proper house, getting running water, getting electricity. These are very basic things. But we were poor. We didn't have this in the way that we could do now. So these are the things that we have. I mean, if we look yesterday, and it was shared by all across the opposition, the keyboard puppets, and everybody, shared an article from, I believe it is the World Bank, that said that Guyana, the GDP was so bad, and how much it was $5 a day. They went through the whole things about how poor Guyana was. And there was all that followed that. And they didn't read the report properly. The report was from the World Bank. And the report says, and I will quote, "Poverty in Guyana, measured using the upper middle income poverty line of $5.50 US per day in 2011 PPP, has dropped from close to 61% in 2006 to around 48% in 2019, but was still among the highest in Latin America." Now, this report refers to events of 2019. And just to tell you how some persons want to find negativity in Guyana and how they want to pull Guyana down and spread negative things about Guyana, they wouldn't even read it. Before you would spread something like that, you would have thought that you would at least read it. The assumption is you can't read. then you should read it. And when you read it, you should understand it. And if you don't understand it, don't share it. Pure and simple. Again, that comes about from the perception. But it's easy when you have someone to just say false things all the time, who say unjustified, unsubstantiated things. Nobody checks, but it goes forward. And it begins to build a rhetoric, and we must fight that. We must not allow this rhetoric to come on. Now, I think we all would have seen that there was a press conference with the Vice President today, and there was a response. Mr. Burke, if you're watching, again, you should understand this. The criticism that you seek to level at political leaders in this country, with the greatest of respect to you, you do not have the stature to criticize. You have not come to this country to do anything constructive. All reports are that everything you have done in this country and known for is negative, which is why you have left. You now live in exile because of the things you have done. And for the people you criticize, you could not tie their shoes laces, much less stand in their shoes. You are referring to the Vice President as a sociopath. I don't think you know what that means. And you make all these wild other accusations about being a bribe hustler, an extradition, these sorts of nonsense. You know why you say these things too. You know why you say these things. You say these things because you are not here, so that you do not have to face a court. And you know that to find you, and nobody knows where you live. Nobody knows your address. The court proceedings that have been brought against you have to be published and advertised everywhere, sent to your Facebook page, sent to your Facebook to be sure that you're being made aware of it. Because you're hiding. You're not going to answer any of these allegations. So you could say what you want with impunity, with absolute impunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, please do not buy into stupidity. Look for yourself what happens here in Guyana. Look at the government programs that they are. Look at the things that are happening every day. The roads are not being used by one race. The water is not being consumed by one race. The electricity and the better electricity prices that are to come are not going to be consumed by one race. The bridge that is going to be built is not one set of people will drive across those bridges. So don't be fooled into and buy into this stupidity. Don't buy into this nonsense. And you see, this is the thing. Keep stoking. All he does is every chance he gets, he stokes this fire of racism. And what he's doing is a criminal offense. And what the reason he's doing it with impunity is because he doesn't seem to be able to come back to this country. And if he's not going to come back, he should not be allowed to destroy it. If he will not come here and stand like a man to fight for what he thinks he should fight for, he should stay out of Guyana altogether. Now, one of the things that we must also address is in a very startling article which apparently came out of that same diaspora. Two people who are here who have said things that the Guyana government are only engaged in acts of discrimination. Mr. Paul Slow, he is charged and he's before the court. He's going to have his day in court. He could say what he wants. But the other gentleman, Mr. Hines, who goes on about saying that what he would like we need now is a U.S. House of Representatives resolution to condemn the condition and conduct of President Ali in their actions of economic prosecution of African Guyanese. There's a whole lot of words. Mr. Hines, do you know what it means? Do you have instances that you would like to bring to the fore? Why wouldn't you? You love the generalizations. Those are the tools of the con men. General statements, short on specifics. And you want to say that you want the U.S. House of Representatives to deal with it? This is Guyana. This is a sovereign state. I mean, you're free to have that done, but you should come here and point out what are these things you're speaking of. I mean, to have this hatred for this country all of a sudden, beggars belief. Where did it come from? Did something happen? Did something had to have happened? But this Guyana that we have, it's easy to fan these flames of racism, and we must not. We look objectively. You don't have to take what I say. Look objectively. The roads that are being built, the house lots that are being distributed, the grants that are being given, the various grants that are being given, are they designed, you think, for only one set? People, you could say anything if you want to, but you should have substance when you say it. And this and these people are all the reason why, when they have these diaspora events, and they have people come to these diaspora events who've never come to Guyana, who know nothing about Guyana, they believe that these are the experts, and they're telling them about all the events that's going on in Guyana, when in fact it couldn't be further from the truth. Guyana is moving forward in so many directions simultaneously. There is so much going on simultaneously. And the complaints that are being made should be addressed. The exact complaints should be identified and brought to the fore. Not generalizations, not at all. And there are institutions and places that if you've been discriminated against, you are free to go to. The courts are the best ones, in my mind, but you could take your pick. There's the Ethnic Relations Commission and other such bodies, but you could take your choice. Now, one of the other things that we had, I mean, it's a week that couldn't believe half of the things that are being said by the opposition leader. It's painful to try to watch a man who just continuously wraps himself in knots and does not realize just how foolish it sounds, does not realize just how outrageous the stories are. They were the stories to do with, the first set of stories were, well, last week I mentioned some of it about the things that he was saying, and this week now it's about these small houses. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with this man? Something has to be seriously wrong. This is actually, I thought with the polls, where there were these secret polls that only he knew of and whatever else we dealt with last week, the utter nonsense, his conversation with a journalist about the polls. He's not, I thought that couldn't be taught, but he has, about the small houses. He comes up with this ridiculous thing about these houses are too small for families to live in because children are going to be exposed to adult activities because the places are too small. Now, the smallest built were built by the last administration. If you drive from Diamond on the new road that is built to Diamond, and you drive from Diamond towards Beckles on the single road, you will see the smallest houses built in anywhere in Guyana. I mean, the houses are literally the size of a studio apartment, if not smaller. And that was built by the last administration to house people. But you see, That comes, and I don't want to get into too much details, but that comes when you clearly give no thought to what you're saying, or you don't understand what you're saying. Guyanese people, we are coming from a country that is poor. Most Guyanese, all Guyanese, would be grateful for a house to live in. You see, when a man has a house, a family has a house, it is their patch. They will fix it the way they want. They will take their monies, whether it's a lot or a little, and they will make it and use it for their benefit. They will build, they will furnish it how they want. They will set it up and decorate it how they want. Because it's theirs, it's their yard. When they go in there, they are king. And you have to realize that in every society, everywhere in the world, there are people at all strata of society, and everybody needs a start. Everybody, you need to give them a little start, and once they get a start, that's how they could move upwards. And this, some people could afford the smaller houses of the lot. And for you to criticize that, you know what, we should not be giving away these small houses is utterly irresponsible. You haven't thought about what you say, or you don't understand what you're saying. I mean, these sorts of things is why I always say leadership is a real thing, it's not a word. Thinking about what you say, being responsible about how you react to things, not getting overly angry, not just dismissing things, but give it some thought, see what it is, move forward, do better. Leadership is important. And these things take maturity, it takes hard work too, and it takes determination to actually get the facts and know what the story in the situation is. I mean, I don't want to go into it in great detail, but the Vice President today was at pains to point out that we are going to go to, it appears, a new round whereby we will look at licensing companies to be operators for our oil blocks. But you could see, even if you just read the headlines, you could see that there are going to be different contracts, there are going to be different provisions for royalties, there are going to be different provisions for what Guyana will get out of those blocks and what we will get in terms of secured investment. We've seen that. And I don't want to go into all the details. The Vice President has done it far better than I can. But you could see that's leadership. The last administration did nothing in that regard. And what we're trying to do now is fix that. Again, these are the things that we have to go through as a nation. These are the steps that we have to do. We have to improve on so many things, and we have to get better at doing the things. And then, of course, the last thing I want to deal with tonight is do not listen to all the comments from the opposition leader. Well, especially when he says there's no excuse for not raising the salaries of public servants. You see, that's an easy play to say, well, look, give them more, pay them more. But you got to take everything holistically. What else is going on? But you got to take into consideration the grants that are being given. You got to take into consideration the reduction in the taxes that have gone on. You got to take into consideration the subsidies that are being put out, fuel more importantly, and how those things. You got to take the overall. I mean, it's fairly complex about fiscal policy and economics, but it's also very simple when you can see that if you don't have to spend money, if you don't have VAT on things, like water and electricity, you don't have VAT and school fees and things like that, then you have to pay less. You actually have to pay less. But all of that, coupled with grants, improves and lifts the standard of living of a country. And of course, what would be always is to get a pay raise. Everybody likes a pay raise. But you've got to look at what's going on in the country across all fronts. Look at what is being done to improve. And then look at what the pay raise can be, what you can afford. You've got to pay what you can afford. Now, what I will tell you is do not listen to one single word that the opposition leader says. The government has made no pronouncements about pay raises. The government has taken no decision. There's been nothing made. And perhaps what he's trying to score is cheap political points. It's to say, well, oh, I was the one saying that. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that there are hot button issues, things like salary increases, etc. But we got to be responsible as a nation. We got to be responsible as a country. And we've got to look at things from the perspective of how it works. As a whole, you've got to look at it. And I don't think that anybody would say that Guyana 2 years ago and Guyana today is the same place. There is so much going on. There is so much development happening, both in the public sector, the private sector. Guyana is on the move. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us tonight. I know we are a little shorter than the full 1 hour. We've got some matters, but that being said, please be vigilant. I want to just say briefly to you, bear in mind that the local government elections is on the 13th of March, and you should all ensure that you do not take it out of your mind. Still pay attention to where the locations are going to be. That is now being put out, so you could have an idea where the polling stations, where are you going to go with the polling stations, where are you going to have to go to vote. You should really try and make sure that what you do is you find that place, find that location. Still pay attention to all of that. And ladies and gentlemen, good night, and may your God be with you.